One last thing before we move on to the Arduino. Now you remember those fuses. The major setup registers, I always glossed over, but we always had at the beginning of every single program. Well, here's how you set those. In MP Lab, down in the bottom right-hand pane, you'll see several tabs, and one of them being configuration bits. If you don't see that tab, go up to the Window menu and go Window, PIC Memory Views, Configuration Bits. What you'll have is a long list of fuses that each of which you can set in different ways. Now you can look up each of these specific fuses in the datasheet to find out what they do and if you want to use them or not. Let me give you one example. The watchdog timer, set by this fuse right here. Now the watchdog timer is a timer inside the PIC which is driven by the time of an internal resistor and capacitor. So the clock of the PIC doesn't affect it at all. It will count up to 256 based on its own clock. If it does not get reset, then when it wraps around on the count, it goes to 0, it will reset the PIC and start over again as if it was powered off and powered back on again. Now the watchdog timer is useful because it can reset your PIC if it hangs in the program. Or the PIC just sits there and waits for an input signal that either it missed or never came. And so the PIC is not running its program, it's just sitting there. So if you don't periodically reset the watchdog timer, it will reset the PIC. In our case, we didn't program that resetting into any of our programs, and in fact, if we left it on during our first few programs, you remember where we externally provided an extremely slow clock speed? Well, the watchdog timer would be continually resetting the PIC. Our program would never run because the watchdog timer would time out. So we set the watchdog timer to disabled. There, we just set that fuse. We set all of the fuses in a similar fashion. Here's our FOSC, the frequency of oscillator. These are the configuration bits we set to change the clock type and speed. You can set them here. In all cases, changing these settings does not configure the PIC. Once you've set all the configuration bits the way you like, then you click on this button here, Generate Source Code to Output. This now spits out several lines of code, which you probably now recognize. You can copy these lines and paste them into your assembly program right near the beginning. Before you do any kind of setup or programming of your PIC, because your program or settings rely on how those configuration bits are set up. So that's the simple way to set the configuration fuses.